Sonia, welcome back to the show. So excited for you to be here.
Me too. When I saw that invite, I was so excited, especially a topic that I feel like we don't open up enough about. I know you and I talk a lot about it, but I just love a platform where we can really talk about motherhood, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Sonia is an incredible mujer that you need to know, and she's been on the podcast to talk about the movement that she is creating over at the Mujerón Movement. And so, I want to know first off, what did you perceive motherhood would be like before you became a mom? Like, what did you experience with motherhood growing up?
That's such a powerful question. I was always afraid of motherhood.
Same girl.
I knew it was going to be hard work. And I think a lot of it had to do with the type of goals that I had for myself very young. I wanted to be like a singer when I was a kid, and then a reporter. And then when I started doing this work, which is creating a brand from the ground up, I knew it was going to be so much work, specifically in the like self development, like believing that you can do all the things. So I think growing up, my parents are entrepreneurs. So I grew up in my dad's bodega. I literally would put like the prices on the items and stack them up. So I wasn't really afraid of growing a family while growing a business because I was literally in that as a kid. But I think the biggest thing for me was, and I have to be super honest, like my body image and just knowing that it was going to change so many things for me. Coming from a background where I used to do pageants and TV, a lot of those things I carried with me. And I knew stepping into motherhood, it was going to challenge all of those things. And it has in the best way I think possible. But growing up, I think those were the things that really scared me, all the different changes that would come with motherhood. And my parents, I have to give it to them. They did such an incredible job at making parenting look so easy. Because even now, I'm like, how did they do it? They had 4 kids and grew a business. My parents have grown a multi-million dollar business that brings in multi-million dollars a year. And it's just insane to me that they were able to do that. No education, not knowing the language in a different country with 4 kids. I just don't think I can top that for sure.
I love that. And I think that speaks to the inner hustler that we all have like embedded into our DNA as Latinos. Like we can create magic out of freaking thin air. And it's a resilience that I think is a superpower that lives within so much of us. I also feel very seen by your comment about like the body image and the physical changes that, happen through motherhood, because I think our culture is very vain in some ways. Like there's a lot of focus on the physical, the snapback, right? You have to put the faja on as soon as you have the baby. Like people will be judging you if you don't quote unquote get back to normal right away. There's a lot of focus on the physical appearance. And so I think that is a fear that a lot of people have when it comes to having a child, but people don't verbalize. Or maybe they just think like, it just comes with the territory, just you're going to suffer and you're never going to feel the same. I'm curious if you had like negative perceptions of what parenting would be like based on experiences that you saw maybe in like extended family members too, because oftentimes what we see is this like unnatural level of sacrifice that is very typical of the Latina mother, where it's just like they don't take care of themselves at all. And like everything, the kids come before everything.
Yes, and I think I will have to say that was very much what I was exposed to growing up. All the women in my family sacrificed, right? What they wanted to be. And I remember being a kid and asking my mom, well, what did you want to do when you grow up? And she would always say, like, I wanted to be una bailarina de folclórico. And, your grandpa didn't let me go to Mexico City and pursue that. And so she got married very young. And I think in a way it was her way out of the toxicity she was living at home. And I think that gracias a Dios, like she's had a great life, but I just wonder what it would have been if she put herself first without caring what her dad thought, or even my dad at some point, right? So I think that one of the things I knew is that I didn't want to use my child as an excuse to why I wasn't going to go after my goals. And let me tell you, that is so hard when you're in the thick of it, because there are times where I'm definitely like, I'm going to quit and I'm just going to be a stay at home mom. But I tried that for like 3 months and I was miserable. So I was like, there's no way I can do this. And like, shout out to stay at home moms, right? I think that it's definitely not for everyone. It is so beautiful that, that they find fulfillment in really staying home. And I think my mom, I remember it was like 4 months into motherhood and I was a mess, just crying. And my mom's like, ¿Qué tienes? I'm like, I just don't want to be a stay at home mom. And I remember her looking at me with like, what? What do you mean? Look at your baby. He's so beautiful. Like, how could you say that? And I feel like in that moment, I understood that it was just a different perspective, right? I just have different goals. And what fulfills me doesn't mean that that fulfills my mom. And like, that's okay. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is through this journey, really just what makes you happy and being okay with people are going to say things. There are going to be comments about your parenting, about what you do, about how you spend your time. If you're taking your kid to the park enough times a week or whatever that looks like, right? But at the end of the day, how are you fulfilling yourself so that you can be the best mom for that child? And I think that's something, going back to your question, that I lacked seeing in my family for sure. Like, most of the women that I grew up around, yeah, they were supporting their husbands in their businesses and they were raising incredible children, but I never really felt like they were putting themselves first.
Yeah. I think that's real. There's a couple things that play into that. One, typically back in the day, you were having kids younger, right? And so there wasn't that time to be a full grown woman out here in the world, discovering your passions, like having hobbies, right? Like my mom was married by 21, had two kids by the time she was like 27. She didn't have any time to like go and explore what she wanted to do. So I think that factors a lot into this over compensation that women typically do, where it's like, because their whole identities are wrapped up in motherhood, they don't know how to do anything else. And then one day you find yourself like, okay, what's next? Now that my kids don't need me necessarily as much, it can lead to an existential crisis, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. I want to add just on that because I'm seeing it a lot now. Like, now that we're definitely all out of the house, my mom has all of this time and I've seen it in her. I think it's just such a big lesson that I wish I can sit down someday and like really talk to her, how she's been this strong woman, but at the same time now I see her and being like, well, what do I do now? All this time I dedicated to you guys and you guys are out of the house. And like, she has so many talents. Like, my mom, if she really just like got into one of her outlets that she just like is so talented, she would for sure be a millionaire because that's how good she is. So I love seeing her now explore it. She's starting her flower business and all of the Mujerón stuff that you see at our events. More than likely, my mom made them, like, all the decoration stuff, because she loves doing that stuff. And I think that now I've tried to see how can I support her so she can find herself, because I think that that's when I really feel proud of myself for stepping into what I want to do regardless of being a mom, because someday I know my children are going to leave the house and I'm still going to have an identity and it's not just going to be mom.
Mm, I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about when you actually decide to become a mom and where you were in your business journey. So, what I find, there's a lot of women who are putting motherhood on the back burner, or maybe just like saying, I don't even want to do this at all because there is this perception that you're not going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish becoming a mom. So, what was that transition for you?
I love to share my journey because I was literally at the beginning of monetizing my brand. At that point, right before I got pregnant, I had just hosted like small meetups and like maybe had some merch that I was selling at these meetups. But I knew I wanted to launch a podcast and I wanted to do our coaching program. And I started prepping to launch the program when I found out I was pregnant. So I remember telling my husband, like, oh my God, I shouldn't do this program because I'm pregnant now. And like, I'm totally not going to be able to do both. And my husband was like, you better launch this program. He's like, you better launch this program. I remember he would even joke, like, you better launch this program or, some crazy thing. Like, and that really just pushed me to do both. So I was literally growing this baby and growing my business baby at the same time. I launched right before my third trimester, and I took a big hiatus after. So I didn't do anything business wise like 6 months after I had my baby, but it really just helped me realize how strong we really are and how motherhood pushes you to become the best version of you. Because I knew that this was going to be a story that I could share with my community and say, hey, it doesn't matter if you're pregnant. Like, you could still dream big, launch a whole ass new business, and, support people, help them in their own transformation while you're going through a huge life transition. So for me, it was such a transformational year, not just through motherhood, but through my business. And my baby has literally been on my hip building our signature annual event that we have for the Mujerón community, the podcast. Like, I've literally recorded podcast episodes and you could hear him in the background because I'm like, we're going to get this done one way or another. So it's been super empowering. Motherhood has really allowed me to step into it. And of course, I question myself a lot if all of this will be worth it one day, if I should spend more time with him, if I should be doing more in my business, if I should be juggling, all the different things. But I think at the end of the day, just the way that I was hopping on this call, my mom was literally leaving with my son. I'm like finishing up my mascara while I'm turning on the camera and I'm just debating if, I have something to say to you all. I feel like that is how we get it done.
Yeah. You just kind of have to show up and you figure it out. The same way that it's like the same thing with motherhood. There's no handbook. Yeah, you can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can get advice from everybody, but like your journey is going to be yours. And I think it is a perfect mirror of what entrepreneurship looks like because you can get coached by different people, you can learn different strategies and methods, you can try different offers, but your business is going to be as unique as your baby. And it is what it is.
That is so true.
Yeah. All right. So, one of the things that I have found is a very typical experience for entrepreneurs and also for new mothers is this personal development journey that we unknowingly sign up for when we decide to start a business and have kids. What is the biggest thing that you've discovered about yourself that you didn't know before you became a mom?
I think one of the biggest things for me is using my weaknesses as my strengths. So I'm a very last minute person. Like, I thrive on deadlines, and my husband is the same way. So we are just horrible together. Sometimes we say that because, for example, we moved across cross country this past year in October while I was about to put my biggest event yet. In the same week, we moved, packed our stuff, moved, had the event, then moved, and it was just all last minute. We decided 1 month we are going to move back home, and we packed up, and obviously all of the things happen at once. And I think that for a long time, I was just like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I just get it together? Why can't I just be this planned out person? Why can't, my launches just look perfect. Like every time I would launch, something in my personal life would happen. Either I was traveling or I had family over. Like it wasn't just launch, it was like so many other things. And I think the moment that I realized, like, wait, Sonia, that's how it's supposed to be. Like, it's not supposed to be all perfect and, no obstacles while you're doing all of these things. That's when I realized, like, this is it. And you can plan for certain things. I've learned that obviously, like, I should probably not travel when I'm hoping to launch, or not travel, or maybe not like move the same month that I'm having a big event. But I think through it all, I've learned that sometimes getting it done is better than, not getting it done. And I think a lot of times we spend so much time in planning that we overthink it and we don't take action. And I think that's the only way that I've been able to do anything in my life and my business. It's just we're going to get it done and we're going to figure it out, just how we were talking about earlier. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing that I've learned, that how can I use my weaknesses as my strengths, and how can I leverage that to help me become the best version and the best entrepreneur I want to be.
Yeah. I think it really is a requirement to let go of perfectionism, because you're never going to be the perfect business owner. You're never going to be the perfect mother. You do the best that you can with the skills and the support and the tools that you have. But we just got to show up enough, like, and defining what that enough looks different for everybody. So again, I think it's important to put your blinders on when you're looking out at like what other people are doing, because you don't understand the systems, the processes, the support, the resources, the time. All of that is different for us. And even as mothers, like, your day doesn't look the same as mine. And that's okay. Right. So I would love for you to take us through a typical day of what it looks like for you to be a mom and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I wanted to add just one more tangible takeaway for people that really changed the game for me, and it was theming my days. When I was working part time in my business, and I was a part time, like, I guess, mom, I mean, full time with part time work hours, would theme my days where I would only record Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like, those were the only times I was either on someone's podcast or recording my podcast or having any coaching calls for my business. And then the other days I had, like, for example, Wednesdays were called Ezra days. That's my son. That day I did nothing business. I literally just hung out with my child. We did music class, we did swim class, like all of the little things that I wanted to do with him. And I think that really allowed me to understand that there's going to be some days where I'm not going to be super present, but I'm going to be kicking ass in my business. And then Wednesdays, when that day came with it was just him and I was present at music class and doing all the little things with him, set up play dates with other kids. And that really helped me make it more like the balancing, right? Because there's no real balance. But I think that for me, that really helped me in that way. So that's a more tangible thing that I think helped me in my journey. But a normal day, so my life looks a little bit different. And I think this is great for what we were talking about, how it looks different for all of us, right? One of the big aha moments that I had this year was I'm working in the family business, helping grow that business. I've been helping my parents for the last 4 years. The business was making maybe $2 million a year. When my brother and I took over, we took it to four now. So we're growing the business as a family, which has been great.
Are you guys eloteros? Is that like, what do you do?
Yes. So we import elote mexicano. So we are the importers. We bring it to the US and then we distribute to street vendors and restaurants, all of the people that do like the Mexican goodies.
That is so freaking cool.
Yeah, so my dad started that business, and my brother and I have slowly been structuring it, taking over. That's a whole nother podcast episode for sure.
Yeah, for real. Like the freaking multi-generational business. That is amazing.
Yeah, I am doing that part time and then Mujerón Movement part time. And I realized that this year because a lot of the questions were, well, hey, you are not going to be able to do both businesses like full time effort. And I think that this year I was finally in a place where I said, I'm okay with that. Like I'm in a place right now where I don't want to do Mujerón Movement full time because I want to dedicate some time to helping my parents continue to build something that literally has brought on generational wealth for us. But I think that that was such a huge eye opener for me. So my day can look like me working on Mujerón Movement some days like this, where I wake up, go to the gym, come back, get my son ready, drop him off at school, and then I come home, take some coaching calls, maybe record podcast episodes, get on sponsorship calls, right, to pitch my event. It might look like us going out to meetings in person as well to meet other women that I'm going to collaborate with here in the Phoenix area. And then I pick up my son, and Tuesdays are usually my long days because I have my coaching calls at night for our group coaching program. My husband takes over at those times. I will have to say, like, single moms, I hands down just like you guys are incredible because I could not do it without the village that everyone talks about. But yeah, I try to some days after I pick my son up, go to the park or do something that makes me feel like we're connecting and just somehow fit like family time. Whether that's like having dinner together or watching a movie together, but making sure that there's some connection.
I love that. And it sounds like you're very intentional about where you spend your time, which I think is something that we're kind of forced to become more efficient with where we find the time. I know right now with a 2 month old, I'm like working when she sleeps, or daddy is taking care of her right now. And it's just like, you got to figure out where those time blocks exist for you. You got to optimize your time and hope for the best. And also, you need to just be able to give yourself some grace and flexibility, because you can plan out your whole ass schedule, but your child gets sick or something's going wrong, like with a launch or whatever. Like, there's just going to be a need to pivot sometimes. And it is what it is. And I think we have to get really good at just like not beating ourselves up when things just don't go to plan, because you don't have control all the time. All right. So I'm curious. So you mentioned your husband as a support system. What else does that look like for you, both professionally and personally? So, what kind of support do you have in your business? And then, what kind of support do you have for childcare, all the other stuff that comes with motherhood?
So for business, I always work with someone, whether it's a life coach or a business coach or someone that helps me with operations. I'm always investing in some way. I have a virtual assistant as well who helps me with just business ops, anything with client work, onboarding, offboarding, event planning, all of that. And then I do have someone to help me with podcast planning it. We now are doing a new setup, so we hired someone to help us with that. And then, yeah, I think the business, it's kind of just like more consultants. And then, I'm doing most of the work when it comes to copy and messaging and that kind of stuff. And then at home, we have our amazing cleaning lady. I could not do it without her.
Facts. I mean, we love a good support system at home as much as we love it in the business, because at the end of the day, if you got to pick between like taking care of a child or cleaning toilets, I have to pick the child.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I struggled with that one for a while, but I was like, it's okay.
Were you afraid of like judgment from like people around you, that it's like, who do you think you are hiring help?
I think I was more so like, you could be doing this. It only takes this much. You know what I mean? But I think that both my husband and I are very busy. My husband's a VP in his company and he has his own side hustle as well. So it's just a lot going on. And then we have my son's school. He goes to Montessori school where we love, just the support that we get there and being able to have somewhere where you feel like your child is safe while you work. is amazing too. And of course, family. I think that was one of the biggest reasons why we decided to move back to Arizona, where my entire family and his family are at, because the family support is amazing. Like my mom came in right now, and as she's picking my son up, she's like, "Let me just wash these dishes." And I'm just like, wow, like that type of support is, you can't replace it. So yeah, support is so important. And I wish I would have understood that sooner than later, because I think the more we overthink about what we should be investing in and is it going to be worth it, I think that it's completely worth it. And, yeah, it's an investment, but it's helping you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to normalize the fact that we don't need to be doing it all, because when we think about why so many women in our families were stressed out and burnt out and exhausted and angry and resentful, it's like, yeah, you're doing all the things, like, and with little to no support. So if we want to really break like generational curses from that perspective, we have to do something different. And so I think having these types of conversations where we are normalizing that we're choosing actively to not do it all, I think that is healing for a lot of people to hear.
And a therapist.
Girl, yes. Please sign up for therapy when you become a parent, okay? Because you will be triggered, and all of your childhood traumas and everything that you've ever been through is going to be confronting you head on.
Yeah, that was a huge one for me. I got a therapist right when I was in the thick of postpartum, and just get a therapist.
Yeah, the struggle's real, y'all. All right. So, as a working mom, as an entrepreneur, how do you handle mom guilt or the societal pressure of like what people say you should be doing as a mother?
Yeah, I think this is an ongoing thing for me that I work on. It was easier when I was far from family because no one was really like had to look into what I was up to. I think that was one of the big things that I knew was going to kind of trigger me, especially for my mom. I just feel like we just want our mom to be proud of us. And I think our moms come from a very good place in like making comments or saying like things that you should improve, but they don't realize that they're triggering you or that, it triggers you in some way. At least for me, that was the thing. And I think for me, it was setting boundaries. Like that was the biggest thing that I could do work wise and with my just like personal as well. For example, when it came to business, like I had to set the boundary that Tuesdays and Thursdays were Mujerón Movement days, and I couldn't do anything outside of that. For me, that was a huge boundary to set because I knew I was going to have more time to be in the family business and maybe like different things were going to come up on those days, but I just had to block those days out for specifically my other business. And then personally, like recently, I had a really heart to heart with my mom, which I haven't really talked about this, but I would love to share it because it was such a pivotal moment in our relationship. And it happened at Disneyland of all places. She made a comment about, my parenting, and I just like lost it. And I was like, you cannot say this. Like, you need to stop. I feel like, it's you're always saying something, and obviously she didn't take it the best way. So here we are at Disneyland. We were that family that day. You're like, oh wow, really at
Somebody
Disneyland?
probably caught this on video. You got to see if it ends up on TikTok.
Yeah, seriously. And overall, we like came back, and I'm like, I'm sorry for like, exploding, but I just really hope you know how I just want you to be proud of me. And when you say things like that, like it really hurts me. And she apologized, and she's like, I didn't know I was doing that. So it like was a full circle moment where I'm like, wow, all I had to do was set a boundary before I felt like I needed to say this at Disneyland. But I was glad that we were able to like hash that out. And I feel like that is how I've really worked on mom guilt, is really just setting the boundaries and being okay with how I do parenting, or my career won't be okay with everybody. But as long as it's okay with me and my husband, like that's what at the end of the day matters.
Absolutely. I love that perspective because we are not out here trying to like seek permission or approval for what we're doing. I like to remind folks like you are a grown ass woman. You do not need to be getting validation from your parents at this point, but it's hard because, I think that's our culture is very like enmeshed and there's a lot of like that sometimes unhealthy levels of like codependency between especially daughters and mothers. And I think it's just part of how we break those cycles again, where we take inspiration from the things that we loved about what they did as parents, and then we take the lessons as well and see how we can improve on those things. And that doesn't make what we're doing right or wrong. It just makes it, we're just aware of what we want to pass on and what maybe we don't. So, what advice do you have for aspiring mothers or even maybe like new moms who are interested in starting a brand, starting a business, but are feeling like, Sonia, I don't know, first off, where the hell I'm going to find the energy to do this? And also, like, how am I going to stay committed and inspired, especially when things are hard? Because it's so hard to balance your own personal goals with, what goals you have for your children and your family and all that.
Yeah, I think I would tell them to not overthink it, and really they are the brand. Like, I love teaching personal branding because it's one of the best ways that you can use literally what you're going through as your business and not being afraid to be vulnerable, like the Disneyland story. You know what I mean? Like, just different things, that lessons that we learn as we're going through motherhood. Allow yourself to use that as inspiration as well. And it's easier said than done, of course, but I think that if you surround yourself with community and you get yourself a good therapist and you invest in a coach or a program or something, right? You can find so many things with Janice. We have the Mujerón University as well. Like, there's a lot of resources out there where you can invest and really get that support. But I think that the biggest thing I can tell them is, if you have an itch, even just like something in your heart telling you that you need to show up as a leader, or you need to share your story, or you need to start a brand, a movement, whatever that looks like for you, do it. I would rather be a failed entrepreneur than I didn't even try it. Or what if, I feel like the more that we just put ourselves out there, the more that we see and we get direction and we gain clarity. Because I truly believe clarity comes from taking action. So just get out there and do it, and let us know. We'll be rooting for you.
Absolutely. I love that sentiment. And I love to focus on like now my daughter's watching, right? Your kids are watching and you're going to teach them some very powerful lessons when they see you taking risks and trying new things and building this business and being a part of your success. So if you take the ego out of it and you take all the mind drama that comes with I'm afraid to fail, I'm afraid to show up. It's like, what happens when you show your child like the power of showing up? You don't know what kind of transformation that's going to cause, what kind of ripple effect that has. And so I think it's important for us to look for that greater why when in those moments of doubt.
Yeah, and start your own little traditions. Like, for me, taking my son to our annual event is such a big, like, symbol of I did it while raising him. And from our first event to we just had our third in October, having him there, just even though he does has no idea, right? But I remember the first time he went on stage and he just like looked at everyone and everyone's like clapping for him. And just I hope that one day he can look back and see, like, look, mom built this, or like, I was there. And just that idea of like, yeah, they watch us. And I think that's why motherhood pushes you to become the best version of you.
I love that. Sonia, this conversation has been amazing. I know mothers and non-mothers alike are going to be inspired by you and want to find out more about how they can work with you, your signature event, your signature program, and more. So tell us what you have coming up and where people can find out more about the Mujerón movement.
Yes, so you can check out mujeron.com. We have all of the things that we do there, the podcast, And we have our annual signature event in the fall. And then we have our coaching program, which is the Mujerón University. That's where I help women closely for an entire year. You have access to this program. We have coaching calls every week, and we really go into what building a personal brand and you while building your purpose and like stepping into your purpose looks like. We do a lot of self-discovery there because, of course, in order for you to get out there and put yourself out there, there's a lot of self-doubt and all of the things that come with it. So you have support on that. And then what does that look like, right? What does launching a personal brand look like? So I kind of share my step-by-step of how I built Mujerón Movement and how to build something that resonates with others, and just sharing your story and how powerful your story truly is. So that we will start again in March. So if you're interested in that, check out mujeron.com and you'll see more details on the programs tab.
I love it. Sonia, thank you so much for inspiring us and for reminding us that mamás can also be mujerones también.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.